Cadillac's hit music station, 107.9 CDY. Pausing the music for about 30 minutes for Cadillac Unscripted. It is Saturday morning. I am Rich Spicer. Katy Huckle is with me. And we've been attacking the coronavirus from multiple angles over the last several weeks on the program. And this time we decided we needed to take it from the mental health aspect. We've talked about physical health and how important that is. But mentally, how we handle this is every bit as crucial, is it not, Katy?
100%. And we're trying to also keep it local. And Rich and I both have seniors. And so we're finding out that these kids, now spring break's come and gone. And now it's not so fun to be stuck at home anymore. And we also know that adults are home with their children and with their grandchildren. And then we have grandparents that can't see their grandchildren and they're upset by that. And so we brought in a mental health expert. We've got Dr. Craig Derror on the line with us today. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning, Katy. Good morning, Rich.
Nice to have you on the program this morning.
So, Dr. Derror, what emotions are people feeling right now?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, that's a good question. I think a lot of times we're dealing with, again, a lot of people with anxiety and depression. But really what I'm seeing is a spike in frustration.
Oh, boy.
I'm really seeing that come out in a lot of different ways.
Are you seeing that happen in people who aren't normally right,
irritated?
I mean, people that already have an underlying condition of, anxiety or, that kind of thing. Are you finding that is new in people?
Yeah, I think that I'm seeing it in colleagues, maybe even in myself at times. I'm looking at it and going, geez, what am I really feeling right now? And I think really when I take a step back and look at it, what it boils down to is frustration, that kind of combination of, I think, fear, loss of control, maybe even some anger as far as not being able to do the things that we typically can do. You're talking about, kids being home from school and all the disruption there. And I think it just comes out, people are a little bit on edge lately.
Absolutely. And Rich, a little bit about Dr. Derror's background. He has a private practice. He is a psychologist with Munson Healthcare. And he also, on that resume, has a background with prison psychological care and going into big-time facilities and doing counseling that way, too. So it runs the gamut. And just a real, this is kind of a little bit of a rabbit trail, but Dr. Derror, tell us a little bit about what's happening in Michigan prisons right now. Because I know you've got colleagues working that.
I certainly do. I still have some folks. I've been out of the prison system for a little bit, but matter of fact, I just had conversations this week with two former coworkers that are still working within the prison system. They're both working at the Oaks Correctional Facility. And the biggest thing that I'm hearing from both of them is just the anxiety and fear about, the potential of certainly the COVID-19 spreading within a facility. We look at New York City or we look at other areas and we see how in contained areas how the virus can spread. Well, certainly within the Michigan Department of Corrections, that's a big concern. They're looking at it and really worried about, how are we going to keep everybody safe and healthy. That includes staff and prisoners. Luckily, right now, knock on wood, I'm hearing that things are going the best that they can, and we're just hoping that they continue with the safe practices. Certainly, washing hands, not touching face. Those are the biggest things they can do, and it seems like their messaging is getting around. Let's just hope that it stays that way.
I see. Okay, when you talk about frustration and these other feelings, what should folks do to deal with these feelings?
I think one of the biggest things is recognizing, what feelings, what are we really feeling? What's going on? If we can identify what we're actually feeling, kind of peel it away and see what the trigger points are. And then I think once we identify that, I think it's important to communicate it with other people, the people around us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Try to explain why you're acting a certain way, and maybe even asking for help.
Absolutely, and the other benefit of that is it really helps get it out of our own heads, right? So
Okay.
if we're just thinking about it and ruminating about things, it's a lot harder to deal with.
I see. So maybe processing whatever it is. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I know that a lot of kids are visiting via social media and, talking about how, okay, this really was the end of our school year. And I know one of the kids said today it was our last day of high school and we didn't even know it, and so then they were all kind of talking about that. And so we had pastors on the show that shared with us that they're seeing more family time together, less busyness, and maybe some healthier behaviors with exercise and maybe even meal preparation, eating together as a family. Can you talk about changes in people's patterns that could be beneficial in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that those are all excellent points, from the difficulties that we're having as far as having to quarantine and do some social isolation. It does give us an opportunity to really reconnect as family members. I was just talking with a therapist down the hallway this morning, and she has two teenagers, and she said usually they're like oil and water, but they spent some time and actually have been putting puzzles together.
All right.
Which typically they wouldn't do. Mm-hmm. And she was chuckling because she said, she went down the road and checked in on somebody who's elderly, an elderly neighbor. She said she took her dinner and 2 rolls of toilet paper. So apparently it's the new currency in the area. I don't know.
I love it.
Anyway, for exchange for that, she just asked the neighbor to leave some puzzles on the table where they exchange. Apparently, they do this exchange, and so they're taking puzzles back and just kind of doing that as a family. And I think that that's a really cool thing.
Yes. Oh, that's wonderful. What about exercise?
Oh my goodness, yeah. Okay. Exercise always important for all of us, right?
Yes.
And the thing, as I'm looking at it, I've had friends reach out to me via Facebook and say, okay, we're going to do the 30-day challenge, for the month of April, 30 minutes a day. Post a picture of you of, whether it's your Fitbit or some activity, what are you doing? The other thing that I'm seeing is people being really creative, people exercising, indoors via, free online courses.
Okay.
Did you see, I don't know if you guys saw this, you probably did, in Italy with all the stuff they're dealing with there, with the guy who was running back and forth on his outside deck. He ran a marathon.
Oh,
just running back and forth.
Yes.
Oh, that's crazy.
Be creative, right?
Oh,
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So if you do this on social media or you challenge your friends, you hold each other accountable, don't you? No one wants to be the one that didn't get it handled.
Oh, I tell you what, yesterday I got up and I'm like, I didn't really have the energy, but I'm like, oh, I saw somebody post. I'm like, I have to post. I can't be that guy.
Yeah, be that guy. So parents who have kids that are worried or upset, what should parents be telling their children? I mean, you don't want to lie. You don't want to tell them like it's no big deal. What do you say?
Yeah, I think that parents, you know your kids better than anybody, so you want to be age appropriate for sure, and you want to strike that balance. You don't want to underplay it, but you don't want to strike panic either. There's some websites out there. If parents are wondering, how do I approach this with my kid, and how do I answer the questions that might come up? The CDC has a really good website page that talks about that. And there's also kidshealth.org, which has a lot of really cool suggestions on how do you approach this.
Okay.
Because what do we know? We know that kids, believe it or not, kids worry more about like grandparents and friends than they do about themselves. So they need to know, what are we doing and why are we doing what we're doing to kind of get through this, and things will get back to normal at some point.
Right.
For those who are prone to depression and anxiety, you can allow yourself to be consumed by what you see on your phone, what you see on TV. Do you advise less screen time for those people? Don't look at Facebook more than X number of times a day. How do you address that?
Oh my gosh, I think I'm even talking to myself about that these days. So I was actually watching or listening to a podcast again about how we're dealing with this and the impact of health as far as being isolated or distanced. And somebody was talking about how this was actually a psychologist talking and saying she found herself panic scrolling on Facebook. Just kind of going through and being consumed by all of this negativity and all this stuff that's out there. And
oh boy.
I guess the suggestion is this, again, trying to find that balance and figuring out, don't get sucked into the negative rabbit hole, right? There's so much negativity that can be out there. Technology, just like anything else, can be good or bad. It's how we use it. So find that good source and stick with that.
Dr. Derror, is panic scrolling a term in your field, or did this lady come up with that?
Man, you know what? That's the first time I heard it, and it struck a chord with me. And I looked at it, and I said, I think maybe I've done that before, as you're just kind of going through and going, okay, what's next? What's happening?
Yep. And
I really see that. In the past, prior to hearing that term, I've probably used it more with teenagers in Generation Z, and we talked about, passive scrolling, where you just kind of checked out and you're just kind of scrolling through the social media stuff and not really being active in life.
Oh, boy, that is an epidemic itself right there, what you just described. Isn't it, Rich? Well,
and it's interesting because as I hear you talking about this, I think of the fact that reputable news sources are on equal standing on Facebook with conspiracy theorists. And it's really, really hard.
Yeah.
You have to look at the sources and you have to understand, okay, who's this comment? Who is posting this? What is their motivation behind this?
Yes.
And a lot of people don't make the distinction between a reputable news source and Uncle Jerry's conspiracy theory
and personal opinions.
And personal opinions. Yeah. That's hard to do.
Yeah, everybody's got a voice, and who's got the loudest voice sometimes is who can shape someone's opinion or beliefs. From a mental health standpoint, in the future, how will COVID-19, and I know you don't have a crystal ball, Dr. Derror, but impacting people and how they interact in the future and their behaviors in the future about being around, being in large groups, being in metropolitan area. How will this reshape things?
That's an interesting question. I've been thinking about that a little bit, and I'm hoping, I'm going to be an optimist here, and I'm going to hope that we're going to learn something from this experience and this quarantine, and I'm hoping that we find ways to connect with one another using technology in a very positive manner. So I'm hoping that there's going to be some positives that come from this as far as cultural changes. Instead of like passive scrolling or panic scrolling via Facebook, maybe more kind of Zoom, Google Hangouts, just kind of spending time with each other and just doing stuff.
True interaction then.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Part 2 of our chat with Dr. Craig Derror coming up on Cadillac Unscripted, 107.9 CDY. Buying a home is still the great American dream. And yes, it can be an intimidating process. But you can rest assured and have confidence when the professionals from RE/MAX Central are in your corner to guide you through it. Mary Ann Quist of RE/MAX Central has helped hundreds of home buyers in and around the Cadillac area navigate the process over the years, and she's ready to help you too. From start to finish, from finding a home to submitting an offer, to understanding the purchase agreement, to inspections, surveys, and appraisals, to the time when you finally sit down and sign those closing documents, Mary Ann will be there. When you're ready to buy, talk to Mary Ann Quist at RE/MAX Central. See her listings at teamquist.com.
What TV shows or what movies or, what can people, what feel-good stuff is out there?
if you could see my face right now, my smile, I think I almost sprained a muscle. Because you know what's coming, right?
What?
You gotta, if you have Netflix, you know what I'm going to say. This is what happened to me this past weekend. All of my extended family kept saying, "Have you watched Tiger King yet?"
Okay,
and
Tiger King.
I went, "What? Why would I watch that?" And people just started, talking back and forth. It's a series. It's goofy. It's very strange documentary.
Okay.
But I looked at that and I went, "Man, if we would have went back." See, I didn't know this, and maybe you guys know this. Maybe you're more tech savvy than I am. But I didn't realize there was apps out there where you can actually join and watch like episodes or movies at the exact same time as your friends.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It'll sync it up, right? It syncs it up. Netflix has it available on on the Chromebook, web browser or other apps. And then within that, you can actually type back and forth and interact.
Oh, cool.
And man, we would have had a great time as my group of friends were sending memes back and forth as we were watching this.
So I see. So not just finding a show that makes you feel good or distracts you or takes you to another place, but then watching it simultaneously with people you care about, and then you can interact with them. That's a great idea.
Yeah, it's fun.
Oh.
It could be a fun time.
Yeah, okay. So let's say somebody's struggling today. Someone's having a hard time. What mental health resources are available right now for folks locally?
Well, as far as I know, it seems like all the mental health resources that have been available continue to be available. They might be just in a little different format. Like you said, one of my positions is within the Munson system, and we continue to meet with folks. We've been doing it via phone this week. We now have telemedicine, so we have video capability, so we're going to start seeing people face-to-face via video, via their phones or their computers at home, so we can continue more of as normal as possible, face-to-face sessions. And so I think that, again, if somebody has a need out there, certainly they can seek out different counseling places, or they can consult with their primary care and they can get a referral in.
Sure. Okay. I heard something sort of interesting earlier today. I have a buddy that owns a store in town, a gas station, and he was explaining to me that there's a little bit of a migration from metropolitan areas up north for second homeowners, meaning folks are like, I don't want to be in the city when this all goes down, so I'm going to leave and come to my place up north. And this isn't being really well received, as you can imagine, locally. I mean, there were a few people listening to this conversation going, no. Those folks need to stay where they are for the time being until this blows over, just because it truly is a pandemic. And, people are going to do what they're going to do unless they get pulled over. You can't really, dictate that. But how do we, in a situation where we Northern Michiganders can't control who comes to our beautiful part of the state, what's an appropriate reaction to that kind of thing?
Wow, yeah. I totally understand exactly everything that you just said there. It's all, like you said, it's outside our control. So pretty much the only thing that we can do is continue doing what we are. Hopefully, a lot of hand washing, certainly, and doing our social distancing. And the biggest thing that I saw a doctor who's in one of the New York hospitals that has all the COVID, or many of the COVID-19 patients, and he was interviewed and he said, "Hey, I feel much more comfortable than I have ever felt because I feel like I know what I need to do to not get sick."
Okay.
And the major thing was wash hands, don't touch face.
Yep. Okay.
Like that's 90-some% of it.
Okay. It's funny. There is, I won't list the street address, but there's somebody who's got a great big sign in his front yard that says, "Go home and stay home." I thought, well, this is his way of sort of dealing with this. That made him feel better. But I think you're right. You can't control what other people can do, but you can control what you do to react to something like this. So that's well said.
But that's a very hard thing to tell someone who is predisposed to having anxiety and fear
Yes.
and that kind of thing. How about the unemployed? There are people who are struggling to pay bills, whose paychecks have been cut down to very little or nothing, and that's going to happen for the near future. Hopefully not beyond another couple of months, but how do you address that? I mean, that's hard because people get a sense of their well-being
And worth.
by the paycheck they get.
Yep.
So, how do you address that?
Yeah, that's a real hard one, right?
Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing is looking at and trying to figure out, what is within our control and what's not within our control, and then making that list out, trying to figure out, it's unfortunate that a lot of people have to access, the unemployment benefits right now, sometimes for many people, first time ever, right? Navigating that system and figuring out, what does it mean? And I think that one of the things that I keep hearing is that once they get into the system and they know, okay, I'm going to get this amount, these are my bills, this is what I have, in some ways anxiety goes down a little bit. And then from there, I think it's just trying to figure out, what can I do to ride through this storm and then get back to some form of normalcy.
Okay. And just understanding that it isn't anything that they did. I've got a girlfriend who's worked full time since she was like 14 years old, and for the first time in her life, and it's her office was closed down by the CDC. I mean, there's nothing she can do about it. But she said, Katy, I want to go to work. This is what I do. It's interrupted my routine, and it's hard to. What I want to say to her is, kick back and like you say, find a Netflix series. But that's just not in her nature, and she's really struggling with that.
Absolutely, I think that if I was in that situation or if I was working with her, I would be talking about, I get it. This is where you're at right now. What are some things that you can do to better prepare yourself if you're going to go into? Are you going to go back to your same field? Are you going to go into something different? Do some exploration and figure out this might be a good time to do some goaling, really, to look at, where am I with things and what do I want to do?
Absolutely. I had that in my list of questions for you, too, about life changes and, like you say, goaling and setting the course. I had an interesting call from a longtime customer that, said, it's time for me to spend more time with my parents. I've been, running my company for all these years, and I think I'm going to take, maybe January and February now and head south and spend time with my folks. And I think what happened is this caused a reset of what's really important.
Oh my goodness, right? You talk about parents, right? I'm the youngest of 7. My mom just turned 88 in February.
Wow.
This is very difficult because, we're trying to figure out, ways to stay connected with folks, and we can do technology. Well, my mom's 88. She doesn't do internet. She doesn't do smartphones, and so we're trying to be, safe, not go up there, not expose her in any way. So I'm struggling a little bit, and I have this conversation with somebody today, and somebody said about writing a letter or a postcard, and I said, what? Mm-hmm. So I sat down and I wrote a letter for the first time in I don't know how many years.
Awesome.
And I mailed it at lunchtime. It was crazy. I went, oh, she will love this.
Oh, wow. She's going to tell all of her friends about that. Let me tell you, for sure.
That might be a good piece of advice for anyone with an elderly parent, grandparent, that kind of thing. I mean, that's anything to lift spirits at this point,
Oh, boy. Having something in the mailbox to open that's not, solicitation, that would be so nice.
Oh, my God. You're right, Rich, Katy. Can you imagine, grandkids, great-grandkids, draw a picture, color something, send it to grandma, great grandma. She'll love it.
Oh, that's a really good idea for our listeners. That's a keeper right there, Dr. Derror. What about diet? I mean, there's a lot of people that eat out many times a week, and all of a sudden that's been shut down. When you talk to your patients and stuff, are people reworking that part of their lives? They must have to.
Yeah, they are, but I don't know that they're getting any healthier. I hate to say it, right? Because we're craving carbs, we're craving comfort food, we're eating big things of ice cream.
I'm laughing because we had blizzards for dinner last night.
Dinner?
I'm not kidding.
Really?
And 2 pork chops.
Oh.
Blizzard and 2 pork chops. That's what was that.
Well, it all depends on what order you ate them.
I'm telling you, the blizzards were eaten first. Listen, it's mayhem. But I think he's right. I think you're like, well, I'm stressed out, so what am I going to do to reward myself? And it isn't going to be necessarily healthy. It's just feel-good stuff, isn't it?
Absolutely. We're trying to find anything we can to stimulate that part of the brain that makes us feel good, that there's a reward kind of part of it.
Okay. When you talk about goaling and stuff, what about career changes? And here's the other thing. Do you think folks after this will say, I really didn't like living paycheck to paycheck, and my unemployment has me at whatever % of my income, which is curtailing my lifestyle, although no one really has a lifestyle right now anyway. But I think it might impact spending patterns and earning patterns too.
Oh, I agree with you, Katy. I think that, well, you'll have a percentage that just go back to business as normal, but there'll be those folks that go, wow, I really didn't like the stress that I was under with that. I need to figure out, what am I going to do? Maybe a budget for the first time in a long time and try to save up some.
Yeah, or pay off debt so you're not worried about payments, that kind of thing. Wow.
So 2 or 3 months from now, when the virus has at least, maybe hopefully for the most part, passed us by, we can get back to some semblance of a normal life. What do you think the first thing that's going to happen?
Oh, man, I think the first thing that's going to happen, I think that there'll be a lot of activities as far as in restaurants, out in public, people wanting to go to concerts and events and do the things that maybe typically they might put off, and they might say, well, I'm not going to go to that concert, I'm not going to go to that sporting event. I think people are so starved right now, will be starved for anything, any kind of out social interaction that I think that the economy is going to bounce back in a lot of ways because people are going to want to be out and about.
Yeah.
Right.
I totally agree.
I had a colleague send out something to a bunch of bankers in town this morning, and she said, our office will be closed for Good Friday on March 10th. And then she responded back to everybody and said, I'm so sorry. I meant April 10th. It's just started. And we all laughed. It was a group of 15 different people. Everybody's lost track of the day and time.
Yes. And that is so true. You wake up and you do not know what day and date it is. Just because the days are running together now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about, I want to ask you this from a mental health perspective, Dr. Derror. These people that are in the pajamas all day, and my girlfriend sent me a note, and she said, Katy, 9 o'clock is when you take off your daytime pajamas and put on your nighttime pajamas. And then, of course, I'm still going to my office, but I chuckled about that. So, I mean, I think people probably need to be getting up and getting around at some point, don't they, Dr. Derror?
Yeah, please. Yeah. Don't just stay in your pajamas.
Okay.
Please try to have some kind of a schedule, because here's the thing. If you just sit and you do little of nothing, you'll want to sit and do little of nothing, and it just drains you of energy.
Okay, that is the consequences for that kind of thing. Okay, and then when this goes away and fades away, there you are.
You won't want to get up out the chair.
Oh, boy. Well, we can wrap up at this point, but thank you so much for spending time with us and helping us understand how we're all feeling and maybe giving us some ways to cope with those feelings, Dr. Derror.
Thanks for having me.
Cadillac Unscripted is sponsored by Independent Bank as well as Marianne Quist of Remax Central. Join us next week. We'll dive in again on Cadillac Unscripted on 107.9 CDY.